Hi, everybody. This is Kara with our training team and a few of our SDS staff here for the care coordination monthly info share session. And I am showing, hopefully, my the agenda as soon as I get it open here, show my screen and just make sure that everybody can see it. Welcome to you, our care coordinator community, for this month's info share. And we'll just jump in here. And we have, of course, our agenda showing. And let me open my questions too, so I can kind of keep an eye on that. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Absolutely great to see you here, your name listed. And as always, feel free to give us any kind of questions that you have as we're going on here in the question box, and we'll be happy to address those as we go. Just a couple of quick updates before our teammates here share information about provider agreements. We've been sending out some interesting e-alerts. We have new regs training coming about PCS regs, waiver regs, and in particular our successful COVID flexibilities made permanent, which there were a few, there was at least two e-alerts that went out about that. Because the current Appendix K flexibilities are still in place, they sort of override the new flexibilities made permanent regs. But it's great to see those because that means that there will be, a room there for differences in care coordination visits, and the virtual, or rather I should say distance delivery visit, will be ongoing as an option for care coordination visits. So you should definitely pay attention to e-alerts. We'll have a lot more information coming out about those things when we'll have more trainings available for those topics as time goes on. We have a new info share going out to our provider community. We've had our care coordination info share for a long time. Now we're starting another one for our provider groups outside of care coordination, but we did say in the e-alert that all are welcome. So if you are a care coordinator and you want to come to it, then that's fine, you're welcome to. However, we won't be offering 1 hour CEH for those like we do for this one. So feel free to come to it. We're just hoping to build a bridge of communication to our other provider types, just like we have for you. And we appreciate you being a part of that effort too. Couple questions here. Oh, we'll also see other e-alerts go out. We're going to be running an info share for individuals and families too. And you'll see provider office hours come out, and also office hours for individuals and families. So we're hoping that you can help us get the word out to your individuals and families who might want to participate in a webinar or come to a Zoom for office hours. Okay, a couple questions in there about billing for the telehealth modalities. My best answer right now is to please connect with Conduent for billing rules around telehealth modalities for care coordination. And Carrie, help me remember her last name.
Silvers.
And you can connect with Carrie Silvers. The communications that we have going out have a contact for her. And there's a question that says, do the new regs allow for parents, guardians to provide ongoing services? There are just way too few providers, and many families are without services unless they are able to provide it themselves. Okay, so parents and those with legal representation for the individual are not part of the flexibilities made permanent. So my best answer to that is no. There are different situations that can make it so that not a parent, but a legal representative, a guardian could provide services. They would have to ask the court for that to be placed into the court order. And that is my best information about that right now. But thank you for those questions. And I would like to go ahead and have Rachel Farala-Mingo and Karina Castillo-Shepard take it away for information about provider agreements. Go
Hey,
ahead.
can you guys hear me okay? So I just want to apologize ahead of time. I have construction going on in my house and there's a lot of banging. So if it gets really loud, I can always have Rachel take over. But thanks everyone for coming. Rachel and I wanted to get with you guys to make sure we're relaying the correct information about the care coordination provider agreement. It initially started back in, I think, 2019, Rachel, is when we first got it approved. And since then we've had limited participation in it. And so we just think that laying it out there for you guys, it's a very easy process. It's very straightforward. And we just wanted to kind of have a discussion about it and answer any questions you have. So if you have an individual that is in a residential psychiatric treatment center, API, North Star, DOC custody, obviously care coordinators can't get paid. And so that's the purpose of the care coordination provider agreement. And so what you would do is initiate the provider agreement by contacting Rachel and myself and filling out a verification form stating that the individual is in an institution. The form comes to me, I verify it, and I send it back to you, and that initiates the care coordination provider agreement. From there, Rachel will send you the application to become a care coordination provider agreement, which is super straightforward. It's basically your agency name. You got to read everything that you're signing up for, and at the end you sign it. And then Grants and Contracts wants you to make sure that you attach all the necessary forms. So what they're going to ask for is your Alaska business license, your federal tax ID number, your approved certification through SDS that you are a care coordinator for ISW or IDD waiver services. And if you have any sort of insurance, they want to know that information as well. Once you fill all that out and have your applications, you email that to Grants and Contracts, and as well as Rachel and I, because I work with Grants and Contracts to get that approved. Once it's approved, they'll send it to you, and from that moment on, you can bill moving forward. You can't back bill. So we highly encourage you, if you have somebody that's in the institution, to make sure you're filling out the application as soon as possible. Billing for the provider agreement is a little bit different than your normal Medicaid billing. It's a different funding source, and so we bill on a quarterly basis. So Rachel sends out a courtesy email to you saying, hey, your provider agreement invoices are due, which we've already created the invoices, so we will give you a copy of that to fill out and send back to us. Once I verify, yes, you did care coordination those 3 months, I send it off to our finance unit, and then it gets a check gets written out to you guys. And so it's a pretty straightforward process. You guys already have your business license, you already have your federal tax ID number, you have your certification. So it's really pretty straightforward, and we really want care coordinators to get paid when they're doing the work when individuals are in institutions. We know it can be really demanding when you're working on discharge planning. We know that there's a lot of meetings that are asked of you. So if you guys have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out to Rachel and myself. And Rachel, did I miss anything? Oh, I know what I missed. Also, one of the things that Rachel and I learned on our journey, because it really is a big learning curve for us, because the IDD unit has never done a provider agreement like this before, is that once you are a care coordinator provider agreement approval through Grants and Contracts, it's indefinite. So unless something changes to like your business license or your tax ID number, you don't have to continue to apply for that to become a provider agreement. So that is kind of a positive, because it's kind of a one and done, and then you're approved. Also, what we learned is that if you're an agency like Alzheimer's Resources of Alaska, who have multiple care coordinators under that agency, all of those care coordinators can be approved to provide, or that can turn in invoices for individuals that are institutionalized. You don't have to reapply through grants and contracts for a care coordinator under your agency. All we would have to do is verify that the individual is in the institution. So that initial form that we'd have you fill out, yes, this person's at Lake Mary, you send it to me, I sign it and send it back to you. Then you can start providing invoices to us. So that's really it. It's a pretty straightforward process. We want you guys to get paid. And so again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. And Rachel, please add anything if I forgot anything.
There are a couple questions.
Okay.
There was a question that said, can you give examples of state treatment facilities?
Sure, it's like in-state. So there's North Star, that's a residential psychiatric treatment that's in-state. API is considered an institution. Let's say you have an individual that like gets injured and they have to have surgery and it's going to require them to be in the hospital for a period of time. That is also considered an institutional level of care, so that you can also get paid through the provider agreement. If an individual is in DOC custody and you're actively working on trying to get them released and you need to work out a discharge plan, that's also considered under the care coordination provider agreement. I know that there's some, and I'm going to forget the names of them. It's for children that are in an institution, some group homes that don't necessarily take individuals that have intellectual and developmental disabilities, but we've had an occasion where somebody was in a facility in like, it's not PHH. What is it called, Rachel? Do you remember? We had one person. I can't think of.
Pathway Homes?
What's that?
Is it Pathway Homes?
Sort of.
Okay.
It's through like family-centered services, I believe, and they have like group homes for individuals that are under the age of 18. But it's really more for mental health. But we've had, like I said, an occasion where somebody was in one of those facilities.
So the individual, the recipient, or the client has to have a level of care. So they have to be already approved through our level of care system to be a participant on their end, and then you guys have your care coordination certification, and the institution then is an institution that's barring you from being able to bill Medicaid in a normal way.
So Rachel and Karina, just kind of bring it up, and this is ICF IID level of care, right? So somebody that's on the IDD waiver. So
correct.
That's why the
So
question
not ALI or APDD. This is an IDD program only.
An ISW. Yeah. Is there any other questions?
Yeah, there's a couple. Thanks for answering these too, by the way. So there's a question that says, is this something an agency owner would do?
No, this would be a care coordinator because it's only for care coordination services.
Okay. A question says, why not the other types of waivers? Why not ALI?
Right. That would require that unit to do a provider agreement. We don't oversee those waivers, so it wouldn't be appropriate for us to necessarily oversee a CCMC child when we don't review plans for CCMC or APDD recipients. That would be something that the other unit would have to do.
Okay. A couple questions about getting engaged with this. How is the care coordinator notified of approval, and what's the time frame for processing? A few comments saying they submitted in June and haven't received any kind of a response.
I don't know we have any out there from June. I do know that grants and contracts has been very shorthanded for a couple of years now. And so if you do have an application in, please let us know so we can check on it. So the time frame can vary. We've seen it where we've had to bug them a few times, like, hey, we really need this care coordinator to get paid. So it has taken a while. Sometimes it's taken 2 weeks. So again, we just encourage you to get it in right away. And what was the first part of that question, Kara? I don't see
I'm going to send you an email, Karina. There was a care coordinator who said she had submitted the application and hasn't heard back, but I'll connect you guys.
Okay. So again, There is a little bit of a process. So once you do the actual applications with all the attachments, like your business license and everything, then it goes to grants and contracts. They verify that the application is complete. They send it back to me. I have to verify as Senior and Disability Services because it's our provider agreement. And then I send it back for final approval. So there is a little bit of back and forth. So it can take some time, but again, they're shorthanded. We try to bug them as much as we can if there's an application out there. So please let us know. Yeah, Kat, if you could send me that email, we can definitely check on that.
Okay, great. Question says, what about documentation for contacts with recipients? Is the service documentation that a care coordinator would do any different than the other notes that they bill Medicaid?
That is correct.
The other notes that they create and then bill Medicaid as evidence of doing the service. Go ahead.
That's exactly correct. You're going to continue to do your visit forms the way you normally would document. It's just a different funding source on how you're going to get paid. So you still want to complete the documentation, just in case you were to get audited or something along those lines. There's been times where I've asked for case notes from when they did the meetings just to verify that they did attend and that they are participating in the discharge meetings or what have you.
So a couple of us are asking, can we have the other unit do it? And the best answer we can say is we'll just pass that on to the other unit, the requests for this type of arrangement for other waiver types.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally fine. We can even email Lauren as well, or Rodney, I think it would be who would initiate it. I'm not sure if there's a lot of need out there. Like I said, I wouldn't know that, and that's why we didn't add that into our provider agreement. So yeah, and I would be curious to know if there's a need for it.
All right, the question says, what if a recipient's in a facility outside Alaska with the intent of returning soon?
It would have to be in a facility that is an institution, such as like Lake Mary or Springbrook, North Texas Neuro, those types of residential psychiatric treatment centers. We haven't seen anything really outside of that with individuals out of state. So those are the only ones that we're really familiar with.
Okay. Question about the time span a person would be in the facility. Example is this needed if a person is in API for a few days or potentially a couple of weeks?
It would be more if you couldn't bill that month for them. So if they were only in there for a couple of days, I don't see the need to do the care coordination provider agreement. I would just do your visit when they're not at API. But a lot of times our individuals that are on our IDD waiver and ISW tend to stay longer in institutions like API and like the psychiatric treatment centers out of state. And that's why we worked on this for so many years, is we saw the need for care coordinators who are working super hard and not able to get paid. So we found a way and we want to make sure it's being utilized.
Okay. Would a nursing facility be an institution for rehabilitation for someone?
Yes, I believe it can be considered as an institution. We haven't had that example yet, but again, anytime someone's in the hospital or the care coordinator is unable to bill and they have met our ICF ID level of care, then yes, a provider agreement would be appropriate. And again, if you have any questions, you need an example, we want to verify, just email Rachel and myself.
Okay, great. I think that was the last question on that. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, well, thanks everyone in our wonderful audience here for your questions. We appreciate them greatly. Again, your resources are going to be Karina and Rachel for further questions. So just go ahead and email them. Maybe one of us can drop their email addresses in the chat.
Yeah, I'm doing that.
All right, so now we're on to Harmony. Stellate, do you want to talk about Harmony?
Yeah, we have a new guide that Kat emailed out to you all today, and it's doing a lot of cleanups and preparing you for changes that are coming in the future. So what you see on your agenda is essentially the summary of changes. That there are a couple of little fixes here and there to screenshots and things like that that really didn't warrant like being on the list of being a big deal. But the ones that are include on chapter 1, we changed the wording so that there's the emphasis on making sure for an initial plan, you're using the service start date for the start of your plan. So that's for initials only. And remember that you can't go backwards. It's either on the date of level of care and the date that services starts. Typically, care coordination starts when level of care approves, right? So that's pretty straightforward one, but it has been tripping people up. So we had to adjust that language. The next changes actually hit a couple of different areas, and essentially we're going to be fading out the paper overview sheet, the Uni 14. That is going away November 1st. But because you're doing your plans, that means that's like happening now, that you need to start preparing for that to go away now. So what that means to you is that on a transitional amendment or an Appendix K, you're going to need to enter in plan services and run the cost of support plan report and include that in the PDF attachment within that support plan. So we did make a video about adding plan services. Kat, Kara, Cassandra, and myself walked through adding plan service and troubleshooting it. So we have launched that on our YouTube channel, and it's linked into the email that you got, and you can see it at the bottom down there. We can drop that link into the chat as well so that you can check it out, or you can just go to subscribe to our YouTube channel, check out our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to watch that video. And this effort to transition away from the paper Uni 14 is for a couple of reasons, including that we're preparing you for going into the short form eventually, right? So that's in the works. We're eventually going to transition away from AppK and to a short form. And we're also trying to continue to manage the impacts of rate changes in Harmony. And this is one of the ways that we're going to continue to focus on managing that. So fading that paper overview sheet. The next really big change, and it's not a huge change, but it's been really confusing, is for a PCS transfer of agency. So when our agencies transfer, and we'll come back to your questions after we finish talking about this next segment. I see a whole bunch from rolling in, so hold your thoughts. You can keep entering them. So when we have a PCS agency transfer, we need the form to be signed by the previous agency and the care coordinator. Your role in that process is helping the client choose the new agency, facilitating that communication, and then the new agency files the PCS transfer form. It's a notification of transfer. They're responsible for filing that form. This didn't really require a change to their guides because they already are supposed to do it. But because we haven't really mapped it, it was rather confusing of like who files what when and the pieces to it. And the simple way to fix it is just to have the new agency file it. Okay, so that's not your Harmony responsibility. Your responsibility is to support your client transition to a new PCS agency. So a couple of other thoughts before we go to questions. There are some upcoming changes coming in the future. The applications, the NFLOC 04 and the CFC 06, okay? Those are going to be required October 1st. So they extended that deadline to October. And then again, that reminder about essentially making sure you're adding plan services to transitional amendments and to APKs and printing a cost of support plan report. Start practicing and using those skills because that's required November 1st. So November 1st, if you go onto our website looking for that paper overview sheet, which is wrong, by the way, like it's not updated, it's going to be gone. So make sure you leverage our office hours if you need help with adding plan services. Watch that video for a walkthrough on some of the trickier spots. What are frequent trouble spots and how you can troubleshoot them. And that's the big pieces for that. So I kind of wanted to go up, and we have quite a few questions. Let me go up here. All right. This looks like some questions. So some questions about if there's going to be a new Harmony trainings coming up. That's a great idea. I'm really curious what your thoughts are on having small segmented concepts like the video that we're releasing. We'd appreciate your feedback, and if that works for you, topic to topic, or if you'd like a full force like 3-hour session, because the content's pretty heavy. So if you're interested in what works best for you, small segments that you can watch on pre-recorded, that you can watch on YouTube, or if you'd like a live class, give us some feedback on that. So can we continue to use AppKs? Yes, AppKs. So all the flexibilities, everything with AppK is still happening. And you can still use the AppK even though the Uni 14 paper overview sheet is going away. Okay, you can still do AppKs. That's not changing. What's changing is the overview sheet is being faded. It's no longer going to be used. Okay. So somebody tried the link and it didn't work, so that's not great. We'll try to see what's going on with that.
And I added the link to the YouTube channel in the chat as well, and I'll send it out to everyone again after the meeting. I tested it and it worked, but if you were clicking in the webinar and trying to access it, it wouldn't work.
Yeah, so there's some there's some finickiness with the links into the webinar. Okay. So some of you are saying you want full force training sessions. That's cool. We'll think about mapping that out and seeing what would work best for you and thinking about the concepts that would be helpful to map as a class. And then some of you are saying you want short segments. So we might have a hybrid of options. We may run them live and then break them into segments. We have some options for it. Looking at some other pieces. So question about the PCS form. So PCS form we sign, and does the new PCS agency sign in a different form in the same form and the participant signing? Good question. So this form actually has recently been revised. It's now the transfer or the notification of transfer of agency. And Kara, if you want to, do you want, I can pull it up, or if you want to, we can just take a quick look at it so you have some context to what this form is. So give me a second and I'll grab it for you. When I say that it's been recently updated, they just kind of spruced it up so that it made sense in Harmony because it didn't reference Harmony. So they made sure that you knew that you needed to file it that way. Not you, that the agencies needed to file it. And they kind of renamed it. It would be under a CFC form, and you do have to sign it as the care coordinator. And the previous agency, the old agency, has to sign it, kind of acknowledging like, I'm no longer going to be serving the client, and the client has to file it as well. So where am I? this bigger. Let's see if I can screen share here with you all. All right, let me know if you can see the forms page. I'm in the CFC section up here. And you'll notice under CFC 03, PCA 16, notification of transfer form. So let's just open this up. And it's going to have just some of the basic information that you have for any client. And it's really making sure that you're indicating if it's a transfer or if it's a model type transfer. So we're going from consumer directed to agency directed. Some of the basics of who's currently serving and who's the new one. And then let's look at the signer. We have the clients, the current agency, the new agency, and you. So this form needs to be filed by the new agency. They'll do it as part of their inquiry. They'll file it with their inquiry to get access to the client's record. Okay, so that's how that particular piece is changing. I don't want to get into the complexities that I've worked with some of you on of like, who's supposed to turn this in? What if I turn it in? We're going to let it all go and put it all on the new agency. They have to file the inquiry to get access to the record, and they can file this at the same time. Okay, other questions? I'm sure I missed some. Kara, Cassandra, Kat, did you see any in particular that you thought we really needed to respond to?
There's a question about
Looking.
care coordination training, but it's not Harmony related, I don't think. I think this is the other care coordination training, and then that question has come up kind of recently. I don't know, Kara, if you want to talk about that.
I see, when will Harmony Care Coordinator training start? We've asked for more information about it. We need more CFC training. Okay, well, currently we're doing a internal training and research around CFC so that we can identify system changes that are already on board with SDS. And as soon as we have those clarified for internals, are what we do with this type of thing where it's like an overall change or something new is that we train our internals first, and then we train our care coordinators and other users of the system who are impacted about it. So we're still working on that, but that'll come out.
And please continue to reach out if you're having complex situations with CFC. I've gotten several in the past week that I'm like researching myself because we're just trying to figure out what happened to them. So please don't struggle with them on your own. Know that we're here to help you try to sort it out and figure out what actions need to be taken with CFC cases. And someday we're going to have it sorted so it's a lot more straightforward. I promise. We're really we're working it. We want it to be smoother for you and for us, and most importantly for our clients, right? So just checking some of the other ones.
There's a couple questions about PCA ROI. What about the PCA ROI that we have to get? I want to say, give us a little bit to research that for you, to get back to you, because there's just different understandings, unless somebody has a handy answer.
I would just always remember that in order for an agency to have access to Harmony, they need to put in their ROI. So when it comes to the application process, it is sticky because if they put in the ROI before you put in the application, SDS is like, what's going on? So communicating with the agency and letting them know I'm prepping the application and putting it in, and maybe letting them know that it's been submitted so that they can in turn put in their ROI on their own. That can be a good strategy. But that is part of the rub here is there's like somebody has to put in the application first to open the programs, and then the agency can file their ROI. Okay, just looking at some other questions, guys. We're just trying to see. So in relation to the transfer, right? So we're talking about my client has CFC PCS and they're changing to another agency. Your responsibility is to help make sure this form gets signed by everybody, and then make a copy of it for your records, of course, but give it to the new agency and tell them to go forth and submit. They should file their own ROI. You do not need to collect their ROI and file anything for them. They should do it themselves. That's part of them having access to the record. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of interest in CFC trainings. You and me both. We're going to get there. Promise. We want it.
And all of your feedback is valuable.
Yeah, it
Your
is.
observations and engaging with CFC, it helps us because if folks are getting different messaging from different units, then it helps us to go back and clarify just to make sure that we're training out the right thing. And I do apologize that it takes a long time. There was a comment about how long it takes for us to get training out. We know that. We wish we could have trained you a year ago. But in getting the best information for you, it's just taking time to do that. And it's a lot of vetting that we do on answers. So it's not, it's not because we don't want to get info out or that we're not trying to do so. We are. It just takes time. And we're tracking your questions. It's what we're doing.
Yeah, just trying to clarifying some of them as well. So at this point, that is really what we had for updates. We still have some time. So there's a couple of things that we can do. Oh, and now we're getting a whole bunch more questions. As part of our typical info shares, we do like to open it up to other questions and experiences that you're having, but to caution that, to let you know that we're aware of the rate changes and everything related to all of the telehealth billing. Like point blank, we can't answer your billing questions about that. We're directed to direct you to Carrie Silvers. Like we're not supposed to, we just, that's not our wheelhouse. We are limited to home and community-based waiver services and PCS. So keep that in mind if you have other things coming up. And then as far as we do have an FAQ that's being pulled together. Kat, did you want to talk about that briefly and let people know what's going on with that?
Yeah, I know we're like a month in from the last session, but it's been kind of a process to get all the questions answered and between the different departments. So we should have the FAQs from last month's InfoShare to you guys this week. And I apologize that it's taking us so long to get it done, but we'll have it. So I think some of your questions regarding which code to use and consent and other things will be answered on that FAQ. It's just been, with folks at summer and people were out and kind of getting 3 different departments to to provide answers have been taking us longer than we expected. So, but we'll have that as soon as we have it finalized, and I'm hoping that'll be this week.
There are
Could we
folks
get
asking
Carrie's?
about, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was gonna say, could we get Carrie Silver's email address, please?
Yeah, I'll put that in the chat.
Okay. There are questions about new rates. We don't have the new rates on our agenda today. That's for a bigger team to have communication around, and through us maybe, but mostly through eAlert. There was a question about, can we review the new care coordinator conditions of participation? So the flexibility is made permanent. Again, we're going to have more specific training around those new COPs and new regs closer to the end of the federal public health emergency. The federal agency has not declared an end to the public health emergency yet. We don't know when it's going to get declared, but when it is declared, that's when we're going to put together more training so that we can help people transition from Appendix K flexibilities to the flexibilities that are made permanent. Some of the pieces of it will continue and some will not. And there's also nuances around, PCA and waiver. Some of the PCA flexibilities can't continue past the end of the federal public health emergency, yet the waiver ones can be extended for up to 6 months past the public health emergency. So these are bigger teams that need to get together to come up with answers to your questions. We are not prepared today to go over those. Just know that Appendix K flexibilities are ongoing. All right, question says, will we consider going back to just care coordinator training instead of full lives? So we still have our learning management system that we're developing. So our care coordinators will become, what'll happen is, it's a website, and you go in and make a username and password. Then you'll have classes available to you in that learning management system as a care coordinator to qualify you for, recertification or initial certification, and then just knowledge-based stuff, things that you can take for CEH, different things like that. We just received the learning management system, and it is a small one at the end of, I want to say, end of last year, beginning of this year. So because of a lot of different questions that needed to get answered, like CFC and the larger team processes, we're still working on our learning management system. But when it's ready, you'll go in for classes there. We'll also have webinars, so it's not that it'll just be computer-based. We'll have live webinars as well. We continue to have our office hours available to you for your case-specific questions. And we'll continue to have full lives. We will not have a care coordinator only conference. I don't know if that was your question, but that is beyond our resources at the moment. So SDS has the same issues as every other employer, lack of staff. Training team has had one staff down for quite a long time now. And it's just, that's the same story that everybody's going through with this COVID ongoing / post-COVID reality. And so we're doing our best to get information to you, as we get it. Vet it, get it, vet it, and get it to you. That's our loop. Any other questions you want to grab there? Anybody? Appreciate your
No,
comment.
just keep looking. Just pretty much answer most of them.
Well, I guess while we have you here, just so that you all know about the provider info shares, because they're geared towards the broader agency audience, we have internally polled SDS about topics that they thought would be of interest and would be a good area to explore with the wider provider base. But what do you see as something that you think that provider agencies could be educated on? We know that at many times you are put in the position of educating agencies. And so we're curious if you have any topics that you think will be really beneficial to explore. And we can't promise you we'll cover all of them, but what we're looking for is for themes that cross between what different stakeholder groups have identified. That would help us kind of prepare for steering that. And it's not going to have the same feel as these info shares. They're going to be, well, maybe a little bit, like kind of like how we had Karina and Rachel here today. We may have some guest speakers, but they're really going to be focused on working on education, on specific topics, and tuning up different areas to help agencies deliver services or maybe collaborate in a more smooth manner. So that's really it's the heart of why we want to start having those provider info shares and why we're focusing on opening the door for provider office hours. So I'm seeing a lot of you put
No, there's
in.
some really good suggestions. I know you were talking and you didn't get a chance to look at them till live. There's some really
Yeah, it's some really
I'm
good
seeing them
ones in
blowing
here.
up. That's great. That's
Yeah.
what we're all about. We
And
want,
also,
I mean,
also, if it's anything as care coordinators, topics that you think that we need to discuss or need to do a training on, just not providers, but what about things for you guys? It sounds like that you want more. Can you give us some ideas of what more do you want?
and just know that, Carol mentioned it earlier about it taking time. We know it takes time, but we also want to make sure that it's quality information. And sometimes that requires a lot of collaboration and clarification and documentation. It's not like we can make a post-it note and be like, inform all providers of this thing. Like it does require a lot of vetting. So that's something, that's why it takes a while. So we need kind of we need concepts to future plan because it takes a while to get it all hammered out, if that makes sense. Yeah, there are some really great ones in here.
Mhm.
And some of these requests or ideas in training are around training providers. And so you can see our info share is one of our ways to work with our other providers so that they can be aware of these things and to get a provider base outside of care coordinators to respond to us and to know that this resource is there. We don't have regulatory requirement for other provider types to come to training. And there are some, like, for example, licensing regs require training for an admin and staff of a home, a licensed home, but they don't specify the topics. So over the years, we've tried different things to get training to our provider groups. We found that without a regulatory requirement, it doesn't always happen. It doesn't happen the way that we envision. And so we're hoping to become a positive resource for our provider groups so that we can have better understanding around habilitation services and writing goals and objectives. We just didn't have that bridge yet. So, I mean, you have to think about what compels people to come to training. People can come to training, but leave without, I guess, a meaningful relationship to the content. So we're trying to we're trying to enhance that so there can be better quality overall for the people we serve. And it doesn't happen in a second, unfortunately, and it doesn't always happen in one way. So we're trying to use our best practices of multiple ways to engage with the information as best as we can, given our resources, so that people have a better chance of accessing and understanding our information and having the right kind of result from it. You know, like any kind of evidence of training that they may need for their own files or their own audits. I know that our audience here today has lots of regulatory requirements around training. And it's important to know that it's not the same way for all provider types.
Well, I just want to thank you all for your candid feedback and your clear, like a lot of really clear themes and concepts that are very valuable for exploring within the provider info share, and for questions that you have about that for your info share and for your learning needs and where you are right now. We hear you, and we are continuing to work forward in ironing out a lot of complexities that slow you down and slow down the process for helping Alaskans. We are aware that you're hitting some of those, and we're only aware of it because you tell us, you know. So please keep like contacting us and letting us know when you hit snags so that we can try to explore the root cause of them, because it's really important that you do that. Just saying. But yeah, thank you for that, all that you do.
And as always, if you come up with more questions after the info share, you could reach out to training or your clinician support. And we'll do our best to follow up and get you the answer if we don't know it.
Yeah, the existence of care coordinator support, CAT's role, is another way that things have changed in order to be more supportive of care coordinators and get info out there. Previous to having CAT in that role, it pretty much just fell to training. And because of, you know, the needs of our care coordinator community for information and a more recent place to meet those needs, or person or role to meet those needs in existence, it just means that we have catching up to do for our other provider types. And we already had a lot of catching up to do for our more recent issues too. So. Okay, well, thanks everybody. Well, it looks like folks are ready to leave, and I also appreciate your suggestions, and even even the frustrations, because we know we have to help meet your needs and help communication go out smoother. So we're ready to do that, and yeah, we're hoping that we'll have a recording up on this, and we'll send out an email to you to give you 1 hour of continuing education for care coordinators.
Thank you, guys.
Don't forget about our office hours for care coordinators, and we'll catch up with you real soon. Thanks again. Goodbye for now.